I think the recording just started. Sorry, I was on mute.
Oh, did it start? Okay, cool.
If you expand the create model section for me, you will see what is doing behind the scenes. So basically, there's one section where we're importing all the pre-built solution to the server. And in that process, we will be loading a part of data just to have previews on each section. So when you look at the pipelines, we have already some data over there. So that's basically the preview that we are already loading. We are finding the relationships, building the schema. So that's basically what is happening in this section. You are on-premise version, right?
What, sorry?
You are on on-premise version, right?
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
All right. Can you hover on the logo, ZAP logo, which is on the right corner? That's right. Left, my other right. Yeah, hover over there, and we have the version 9.2. All right. Okay.
When we were doing the training, it did take around 10-15 minutes to create the model.
All right. Got it. Yeah, I think I will be there. We can have a coffee right now while it processes.
I'm going to grab coffee here, guys. I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to do the same.
All right, sounds good.
See you in 10 minutes.
Yes, I think it has created the model now.
Yeah, awesome. I think it's done. Then it was 8 minutes. Yeah. Let's click then into next. All right. And then let's configure the calendar, which I think it should be fine. Yeah, let's just click into finish. Just before, can you go into the data source section? Can you expand the data source section?
Okay.
I'm just going to change the main company. Click on the training. That's right. And we are going to change the main company to, so go into the company selection. It's the last one.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's right. And let's select the main company as the NA10, which is the one that has better data. That's right. Yeah. That's it. And later on, we can just make an Excel sheet to rename the names of the companies and renames and change the currencies. But I think for now, this is fine. All right, let's click into save. To the save button.
Where is it?
Save. It's
Oh,
in
yes,
the...
sorry, yeah.
All right, and now let's go into the cash flow model and let's process the model. The model, that's right. And then let's process the model. That's awesome. Yeah. The first time it doesn't matter that it's in the default incremental, it will always create a full refresh. All right.
Okay.
So now what I want to show you while the model process is how the modules look like. So if you expand the pipeline section, which pipelines did you work with when you were with Rashmi? It was the sales orders, right?
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
All right. Okay. So the first thing that I want to show you is how the solution looks like. So the pipeline, as you already see in the course, is like is the process on how we transform a table from the source data into the final step. So it's like a journey where we have several steps. So if you, in the path section, can you click on the financials? Just search for the financials in the pipelines. It's the second row.
Oh, yes.
Let's just type financials to filter and see only those financials tables. All right. So the one that it is relevant for the module that we want and then report that we want to create, it's basically the ledger actuals budgets. That's one of the 3 pipelines that we are going to use. So can you click on it? Can you open it?
Yep.
It's one before the last one. Ledger actual budgets.
Oh, yes.
That's right. That's the one. Do you know what the unified layer is? All right. So
not too sure actually of this here.
That's right. So basically, can I ask? Oh, I think I cannot ask control, right? All right. So basically, the gray bar that we see over there, that's the process on how we are transforming the data. So if you expand the preview, if you expand the preview section, which is at the bottom of your screen, you expand it, awesome. And can you go into the initial step? So basically, look what is happening. Maybe right now it will take a while to load data, or it might not because we are processing the model. So if we are running actually this pipeline, maybe we won't be able to see the preview. But what it is happening here is that look at that here in the section that you have there, you have one in step and you have also one out step as well. So basically, those are the transformations that are happening in this step. So what transformations you can do? You can create lookups, you can create calculations, you can create relationships, you can rename the name of a specific table. And when it happens, a specific change, you will see the letters in bold. So, so far what you have in your screen, it doesn't seem like there is happening any change here.
Okay.
And in the previous section, you will see how this step is actually looks like, right? Each step will create a view. That view will be accessible in using SQL.
Yeah.
So that's how we will be able to actually see how the information looks like or query. In my opinion, it's just useful for yes, for testing the data and testing if we are doing the right relationships and the right calculations. So basically it's that. So now can you collapse the previous section?
Sure.
So basically, can you now scroll down? Let's see if there is happening some change here in this section, which actually, well, we only have that update date time, which is a new calculation. And if you see, there's not an in step, and the reason why is because it's just a new calculation that's created. Now, the calculation have certain orders, and sometimes it's not super straightforward, and it's not a rule, but in most scenarios, first we make the lookups. Well, first the relationship happens, then the lookups, then the calculations, and then the filters, which are the sections that we have in the lower part of the screen. So that's like the normal flow of the calculation. That means that, for example, here in this step, we have the update date time date. It is a new calculation that we're bringing here. In most of the scenarios, if we want to create another calculation that uses the update date time date as an input, we won't be able, because this step, this calculation doesn't exist in this step. It's just in the out step, right? So what we will need to do is basically create an additional step to use that update date time date as an input for another calculation. So this is how the steps work, right?
Okay.
So now, if you go if you scroll up, we have another step, which we are basically having a union with the budgets. So now, why I want to start here, the reason why is that the ledger actuals budget is one of the most trickiest pipelines in not only in the training module, actually it is one of the most trickiest one in all the modules that we have. And the reason why is if you click on the source section, can you click on the source section?
Yep.
You will see that actually the source of this pipeline is not a table within the data source, but it is another pipeline. So I'm not sure if you saw this during the training, or or the exercises that you do were only with data source tables.
I think it was data source tables.
All right, awesome. Okay, so as I told you, the pipeline is a process on how we are going to transform in a table, but we can also transform an existing pipeline and add extra steps. Sometimes this is useful because when we have, for example, a pipeline that has many steps and many unions, sometimes we want to add indexes to increase and to have a better performance. Okay. Or maybe we just want to split one table into two different tables. So first we have one pipeline where the journey is, and that happens especially, for example, with accounts payable and accounts receivable, where we have one pipeline, which is the open items, for example, where we have all the accounts receivable and accounts payable. We make some transformations to that pipeline, and then we split that pipeline into two, one for accounts payable and the other for accounts receivable. So instead of using the data source as the source of this pipeline, we use a different pipeline. So I believe this is like the complex part of the actual ledger actual budgets. If you return now into the columns, so basically the big transformation that is happening here is just the one in the second step, which where we are actually making a union with the budget pipeline, right?
Okay.
So that's basically the only thing that we are doing. Now, why we make unions here, the reason why when we are thinking if we want to report in Power BI or we want to report in other solutions such as, for example, Tableau, the reason is that it is important to try to bring everything into one table. Otherwise, it will be really difficult to manage this in Power BI because you will need to have the two tables and recreate all the relationships and recreate all the keys, right?
Yeah.
And it's just for the ease of using the solution. Also, some other solutions, for example, as Tableau, and I think Lookik as well, you can only bring one fact pipeline at a time. And also in terms of performance, this will allow you, for example, in Power BI to create a star schema rather than having just a messy schema with many fact pipelines in the same time. So this is the reason why we always try to bring everything together into one single pipeline. And we have all of these units. And also we standardize the relationships here in the model. All right, so now on the right-hand side, you will see that we have one option, which is the processing dependencies. Can you expand it?
Yep.
Awesome. So in that process, the processing dependencies, you will see which pipelines are actually used to create these pipelines. So one is the accounting budget lines, which is the one that we are using as two union here. And the other one is the accounting entry lines, which is the first one, which was basically the source of this pipeline, right?
Okay.
So can you open it for me? Yeah. Awesome. So now can you click on the source for me? I just want to check something of. All right, awesome. So actually, this is the source pipeline. This pipeline, if you see in that data source, it comes from a data source, which is the training. And now we have a table, which is the accounting entry line. So that is the name of that specific table in the data source. So it will have one different name if it's Dynamics 365. It will have a different name if it's ZAP Business One, but this is the source table. And if you go into the column section, now, imagine that basically the ledger actual budget, the previous pipeline that we were looking, the one that is the final step that has the unified layer, it will be like having these steps and then adding that union step at the end and then the unified layer step at the end. So think of that pipeline as this complete journey. This is the whole journey that we are taking to transform the data into that final step, which is the ledger actions budget. All right.
Okay.
Awesome. So now, can you go again into the ledger actions budget? I just want to explain you what is the final step, which is the unified layer. Many pipelines and most of the the most relevant pipeline that we have that unified layer step. Can you click on it? So basically, the only function of this unified layer is to give a standard structure and standardize the namings and the outputs of all the pipeline. For example, you will see there that we have one GL accounts, which is the in step, and then we change the out step to account code. That's my final step. That's our naming convention. And we also changed the formatting, for example, not only in naming, but in the data type. We can see that we changed this in text. Why we did this? And the reason is mainly two things. When we are thinking about when we're building the data warehouse, we want to have standardized names, because if we change something, the pre-built analytics, we might break them, right? Because when we try to search for a specific field, maybe you change the data type, and maybe you change the naming, and now you won't be able to find it. And that happens in Power BI and as well as ZAP. So what we want to have is something which is standardized. Obviously, we can have more steps. For example, if you scroll down, not all the fields are unified layer steps. Can you scroll a little bit down?
Yep.
See that, for example, those that are from account class going down, all of those fields are not unified layers, so you can have the naming convention that you want. But it's important to respect the ones that are unified layer, because otherwise our pre-built analytics will might break as well in Power BI. All right, so that's just what the unified layer step is actually doing. Now, returning to the and why I wanted to start with the ledger actuals budget. The reason is that the cost, not the cost, the bank accounts that we're going to use actually comes from this ledger actuals budget. That's the reason why we're starting the journey with this pipeline. So far, do you have any questions?
None from me. Any from you, Jordan?
No, nothing from me.
Awesome. All right, so now let's jump back into the account entry lines. I just want to show you what is happening behind the scenes. So what is happening here behind the scenes is that we are making many transformations in between. The most important ones is one which is called retained earnings. That's a really important calculation because it's complex to. Do you know what the retained earnings is when we're talking about a balance sheet statement?
I'm not familiar on it.
All right. Well, basically, what we are doing in a retained earning account, we have two types of account when it comes to financials. There are one which are the profit and loss accounts, and the other ones which are the balance sheet accounts. Okay. So how you treat them when you prepare financial report is different. The balance sheet accounts, you aggregate those accounts in a total to date basis. Okay. And so it's from the first transaction, all the balances up to the last date where we closed the balances on the ERP, and the ones that are related to the income statement or profit and loss statement are basically on a year-to-date basis or month-to-date. So it's only this year, all the transactions of this year or of this month. So we aggregate information in a different way. However, when we're preparing a balance sheet statement, the retained earnings are actually some accounts that comes from the profit and loss statement, and we want to aggregate that in a different way. So it's just one account that has a different way of aggregating in one specific report. So that aggregation step is something that we are doing here in this retained earnings stage. If you are building financial statements where you are working with, for example, eliminations in the company or some complex calculations that are not straightforward, you can actually do that logic. And if we go into the processing dependencies again, can you go expand the processing dependencies? That's right. And click look now all the pipelines that are used here. Mm-hmm. So this is the big picture that I wanted to show you, is that it is many things happening behind the scenes, right? It's not just like this, like the straightforward pipeline that we saw in the training. It's just one pipeline, a couple of steps, and that's it. Here there are many pipelines coming together and combining the information and building the final step that we have. And can you open now the retained earnings for me? Look how the pipeline looks like, but now go into the source step. And now we will see the thread. Okay, I was not expecting that. The reality is that the retained earnings step, I think this is just because it's a training module, but the retained earnings is made by a specific query. So basically we can actually create a query, and we're bringing these retained earnings here. So Yeah, I was not expecting this, but that will happen on a SAP V1 solution as well as in a Dynamics 365 solution. You will see that you can have as a source not only a pipeline, not only a table, but also some SQL queries that you can create, and you can bring them as a source to create a pipeline, and that's where the journey starts. And it can be a SQL that comes directly from the source database, or a query that it's actually reading the pipelines that we have already created. Okay?
Okay.
Awesome. So now let's return into the account entry lines pipeline and scroll to the top. And I think that's the combined amounts. So I think that's basically the main steps. We have also, can you click on the currency conversion? Because we might need to look later on that step. It's the last step of this pipeline.
Yep.
Also, what we do here is we work with currency conversions. Can you scroll down? A little bit more down. All right, there we go. For example, if you click on the GL amount, which is the out step, that's right, you will see that we have some complex queries there. So basically, that's a query that is running a script, that it is basically running this query transformation. So basically, these are all the inputs. We have one main currency. We have one from currency, which is the ledger currency, and the main currency is the to currency. And based on those two calculations and based on the date of the reporting, we bring that currency conversions from one table, that is the currency rates. So this could be done in an easier way. The reason why we do scripting for this type of calculations is just performing. Sometimes the scripts, well, in most scenarios, the scripts run faster than just doing it in as a calculation in the table. So especially for this one, so it's a complex one because we need to make a lookup to many tables. This is the best way. We won't cover, to be honest with you, I still don't fully understand how that script works. I know that it works, so I just copy paste it, and you will be able to do that.
That's okay. No worries.
For other scenarios. All right, so this is the ledger actuals budgets. This is where we are going to obtain the cost of goods sold. So any questions so far?
Nope. No, all good.
No, nothing from me.
Awesome. So now let's just jump into the accounts payable and account receivable, where we are actually going to obtain most of the data that we have. So now let's go into the cash flow model. And now what we are going to do, it's in the financials. Can you remove the financials and let's type, I'm not sure if it's accounts payable. Let's say AP, maybe.
So there,
AP.
AP.
There we, okay. Can you open that for me, the AP? So similarly to what I showed you before, we have some calculations here. We have the unified layer, which is the last step. We have a previous step where we calculate the dates to pay AP. Then we have another step where we actually have the currency conversion. All of our fact pipelines are the ones that we will see that currency conversion step. Just before I move on, do you know, I don't know if you saw that topic during the training, but do you know what is the difference between the fact pipeline and the dimension pipeline?
Yeah, so the dimensions are just like this. You can just like slice and dice all like the calculations in the fact table, or all the numbers in the fact table.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah, fact we are basically the measures.
Yeah.
Everything that we're going to sum. Now, something that it is a good practice is that it's not a good idea to have a fact pipeline and a dimension at the same time. The reason why is because we are basically, when we think about the cube, imagine that we are actually aggregating the data into small pieces, and those pieces will be basically the pieces that we have in the relationships. So that's how we are going to aggregate the data. So if the lower we aggregate, or the more relationships that we aggregate, obviously it will be the more pieces that we create, and the model would take a bit longer to load the data, right? So in most scenarios, we prefer just to have the fact pipeline by itself, just isolated, and just partition and divide that into small pieces depending on the relationships that we have. So that's why it is important to only bring those relevant dimensions that we want. And if we build this into a fact and a dimension at the same time, all those small pieces will be based on the primary key, which in this case is the transaction key. So if your data source has many billions of rows, then the time that it will take to process it will be a bit higher, right? So, but again, it depends. In many scenarios, for example, customers want to get into the lowest level of detail, and they want to see basically what is the invoice. All right, if they want to see the invoice, yes, we can activate this as a dimension. My recommendation is, hey, this is much more of a strategical tool. No, if you want to see a specific invoice, I think that's something that you can look at actually in the ERP rather than on the BA tool, right? But well, again, it's a scenario. Each company depends. If the data source is not that big, and if we test that converting into a dimension and the performance is not affected, it's something that we can certainly do, and it will basically add more value. Okay, so what? So this pipeline that we have here, the AP open items, is basically a fact pipeline, and basically we are doing some simple steps, base calculations and currency conversions. This is the one that we are going to use for building the accounts payables and the cash that actually we're going to pay. Can you go into the initial step? And let's see, you will see that you have one icon, which is a filter.
Yep.
So that means that if you go down to the bottom of that specific pipeline, we have one filter, which basically what it is doing is filtering all the business partner types that are equal to 2. Okay. The reason why we're doing this is that in this particular data source that we are using, there are 2 types of business partner types. One can be the customers, and the other one can be the suppliers and vendors. For this specific case, the vendors are the ones that are equal to. So that might give me an idea that this pipeline doesn't come from the source, but it comes from another pipeline, right? So let's validate if that is actually true. So can you go to the top? And let's go into the source section. And from there, we can actually validate that this pipeline comes from the open items pipeline, right?
Yep.
So this is how the information looks like. So now let's go into the columns. So basically that's the journey. We have one pipeline, which is called the open items, and that open items we divided into 2 pipelines, one for accounts payable and the other one for accounts receivable. That's what we are basically doing. Okay. On a normal project, on a normal scenario, this is what comes out of the box, but we can actually decide if we want to change that logic. We can say, hey, I just want one single deal. Because, for example, in this case, maybe one table, having everything into one might be better, but we are going to use this logic and use what comes out of the box. All right, so I think that we go. Now, something important here is that if you expand that column section from the initial step, if you're already in the initial step, the columns, which is next to refresh schema.
Oh, yes.
That's right. All the columns, can you click on there? All the columns that we will see here are not the columns that comes from the source data, but are the ones that comes from the previous pipeline, the last step of the previous pipeline. So why that happens? Well, because the source is the previous pipeline. So if we want to add, for example, a custom field into the accounts payables pipeline, that it is not on our pre-built solution, you will need to go first into open items and add that field in the first step of the open items, save that pipeline, and then go into this pipeline and add this field again. So it's like a two-step. There are two steps that you need to follow up. All right?
Yep.
Awesome. So now, can you open the open items for me? So you go into the process dependencies.
Process dependencies.
And then from there you can open the open items. So basically, this is the first pipeline. There are some lookups happening here, some calculations happening here. And if you click into the source, that is the open item. So basically, this comes directly from the ERP. We have one pipeline. We create some logic, some calculations, some lookups, and then we divide that pipeline into two pipelines. All right. Okay. So that's basically what is happening. Now, this is, in this case in particular, each ERP is different. For example, in the case of ZAP Business One, your main ERPs are ZAP Business One and Dynamics, right? Or which is your main focus when it comes to BI projects?
We have no real focus. Like it could be either or, to be honest.
All right. Awesome. So there are some ERPs that basically this comes directly from one specific table, but for some others, like SAP Business One, this comes from directly from the actual entry lines. So basically, we have like one arm that comes from the account entry lines, and then we give a preparation for the accounts payable and account receivable modules. So basically, how we use the pipelines and the dependencies might vary from each solution to other. So my recommendation from this specific module when it comes to accounts payable, account receivable, and the later actual budget is to basically to basically follow all the journey of the pipeline to understand where the pipeline starts, where it breaks, and why we make those divisions. So yes, this is basically the journey that we're taking. So we're going to use the accounts payable. This is one. We're going to use the ledger actual budgets. And the last one will be the accounts receivables. Can you go into the cash flow model again for me? Let's now open the one that is the account receivable open items. Okay, that's So basically, the structure of this pipeline should be really similar, but on the opposite side of the accounts payable. However, if you go now into the new step, actually that's wrong. It shouldn't be called new step, but click on it. All right. So basically, this step that we have here, we are actually making a union. That's something that we didn't have in the accounts payable, right? Open items. We didn't have a union. All right. Now, as you click in the initial step, basically what we are doing here, this initial step actually and doesn't look either like an account payable open item. So basically what we do, if you go into the source, we have one pipeline which is called the equivalent to the accounts payable open items is one pipeline that we have there that we mentioned on that query, which is the accounts payable open item excluding CEI. So the CEI is just some calculations. It's called the collection effectiveness index, which measures basically how well we are collecting our debt. So it compares how much sales are coming, how much I am collecting, and getting like those percentages. So that's calculations where we are actually aggregating the data. And this is something similar with to what Paul commented to, hey, let's know, for example, in the history, what is the average of how well I collect the debt and how many days it takes to pay. So those calculations where it involves like historical picture of how things are happening, we can handle that here. This is the source query that I told you. We can start a pipeline with a query. And basically here we are creating a query from the accounts receivable open items excluding CEI, and then we are aggregating the information, selecting the sum of these amounts based on a specific payment status that we have there, and then we have those queries. And then those queries that are aggregated, we make the union back with that account receivable open items excluding CEI indexes. So I think this is one of the most complex. Now, to be fair with you, I have rarely seen that customers actually use this. This is something that I believe that we as a kernel in ZAP should position more, because most of the customers, they don't use these analytics because they don't even know what is the CEI. They don't know that they exist. So it's something that is already done. It's something that has been validated in many scenarios. So it is just about trying to position the value of these pre-built calculations that are already in the model for some customers. So, well, basically, the idea is just to show you how the journey, what is the journey that we're going to take. And we are going to be working basically with these three pipelines. And the idea is first to give you a brief of how the pipelines look like, where we might need to change things. For example, in this scenario, we want to change something from the account receivable perspective. First, we will need to go to the account receivable open items, excluding the CEI indexes. And then we will need to jump into this pipeline to validate that the changes are happening in the union, right? The accounts payable is a straightforward pipeline. It doesn't have like that kind of weird connections. And the ledger actual budgets, it's also a complex pipeline as well, because it comes from another pipeline. So that is the transformation journey that we will need to take here into place. So any questions so far?
No, all good.
How about you, Jordan?
No, nothing from me. It's good.
Awesome. So then what I think we are going to do is basically we're going to start creating, let's see how the data looks like. So let's go into the public folder. So can you go? Let's go into the cash flow reports. Yeah, I think it's better if you, and let's go into the finance module. And let's go into the Chief Financial Officer dashboard. So first, I want to see how the dates look like and how is the quality of the data that I have here in this data source. It might be that we need to create fake transactions. All right, so it seems from here, we can see that basically we don't have, for example, information. My latest information is in December 2020, right? Okay, so if you change the slicer to December 2020, I think we will be able to see the net sales and gross margin that we have there. There we go. Awesome. There we go. So I think we have information for the okay, for December. So I think we are fine with the information that we have on the financials. I think we can work and get a nice banking account. Now let's go into the accounts return to the financial module. Let's go into the account receivable. That's right. And let's see how the information from the account receivable looks like. So can you expand that? Yes. All right, not the best one, but let's see if we can work with it. Basically, well, what is it is of my interest is basically the open transactions, because that's what we are going to talk. Just open documents. We have also the overdue documents. So I think everything it's fine. We should just play around with that, because what Paul explained us when we were thinking about the days to pay, basically what fall in the 10th of May in his example was basically the open overdue amount. So right now everything will be overdue. So we might need to make some magic there to prepare the data and show something that looks a bit better. All right, can we do the same now for the accounts payable?
How do I go back on?
And click on those two dots, that's right. And accounts payable. And that's right. Let's see how the data looks like. Awesome, I think this is better. This is even better. Yeah. All right. Awesome. Okay. Okay, so let's start building the report now. Do you have the Excel file that we have over there that Paul sent to us?
Yeah, I'll just open emails here.
Give me 1 second. Maybe I can also share my screen.
Okay.
Because what I want to do is basically I want to do an exercise where we will both of us work together. So, okay. Give me 1 minute.
No worries.
Okay. Almost there. Okay. So I will share my screen. Please let me know when you see it.
Okay.
And then we will switch back into your screen. All right, so do you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so basically this is the report that we are going to actually be building. And the first exercise that I want to do, and this is just as it's much more as a brainstorming. I always try to do this exercise before building. So basically this is the picture of the report that I have. And what I have here is my list of tables that I will need to add tables, or I will pipelines. we will need to use. These are the list of measures that we will need to use. These are the list of dimensions and the calculations that we are going to build. So from here, what measures do you see that we are going to be using, which are relevant? And I will create a checklist and we will be adding those measures one by one. So if you see, one of the measures that we need is basically this one, right? Which is basically the open invoices, open sales invoices, right?
Okay, yeah.
So I will write here one, which is basically the open sales invoices. Which other one do you see?
Let's see.
The other one will be the open vendor invoices, right? Which is what we have here. So all of this section that we have here are the accounts receivable, and all the section that we have here, it's the accounts payable, right?
Yes.
So the only two measures that we have is the amount, which is the amount gross. Basically, I will put amount gross to both, and basically here I will write it as a description. So basically, this is amount gross, AR, and the amount gross AP. So basically, these are the two main ones. Now, this is just analyzing this table. What I have here basically also is something which is called the opening bank balances in this currency, right? So this is another measure that we need to have, the opening bank balances, right?
Yep.
So now we have that information, and basically this is the opening balance. Now, which tables and pipelines we're going to use? We already see, right? So one is the accounts payable open items. The other one is the account receivable open items, right? And the third one is the, can you remind me, the name is ledger actuals budget, or what is the name of the one from financials?
I think it is ledger size. Need to check. Where is it here? Yes, ledger actuals budget.
Okay. Awesome. So any other calculation that you see here that we might actually need?
Do we need that delayed date as well?
Which one? Oh, the late phase. That's right. Yes. The late phase. And I think that seems to be from here. We might need here also some kind of logic, for example, from this, but these are basically calculations. So we are actually going to use these ones, these calculations, to build this stuff that we have here, right? Now, the next thing that we need to do, let's just jump now into, I will remove this because I don't think there are any others. If not, I can add them back. And the next thing, let's just jump into the dimensions. So which dimensions do you see that we're going to use?
Dimensions you have like customer, company.
That's right. So one would be actually customer, company, currency.
Date as well.
That's right. That's a really important one. So it's company currency date. That's right. And the late date will be something that we will be calculating due to the invoice date. So right now we're using the invoice due date. So basically it is the invoice due date. All right. And then from here we have, I think that's it. I think we have all of those dimensions. All right. And then the calculations that we're going to build here are basically the this one, which is the payments to vendors. I think that's it. But well, we will leave that at the end. All right. So far, any questions in what I'm doing? So basically what I'm doing is just extracting and making a checklist of what things I need to do. Why I do this, in my experience, is that many times we just start working and sometimes we might get a little bit lost on which tables we should be working and where are those informations and those measures, and then we process the model, and then after we process the model we forgot about many things and we spend a lot of time processing the model many times. Right now this won't be expensive in terms of how much time it takes to process the model, but sometimes we were talking about 2-3 terabytes of data. Yes, it's expensive, so that's why I make like this journey of how we are going to basically extract the data. All right, so when it comes to the pipelines, I will just also add here in the pipeline section that these are basically fact pipelines, right?
Okay.
That we will have, because that's where the measures comes. And these are going to be actually dimensions. So from here, as a dimension, we need customer, which is a dimension. And we also need, as a pipeline, we need company, we need currency, and we need the invoice due date, right? So these are basically the dimensions. So let's start with this section. So I will stop sharing my screen and I will basically tell you the dimensions that we need to actually find and to check. We already sketched this one, so we know that they are already in the model. Let's see if we have these dimensions in the model, right? Okay. So I will stop sharing my screen and now you share your screen. Awesome. So one of the dimensions that we need to see, let's see if we have all of those elements, and let's see if we have the company. All right, so it's already there and it's marked as a dimension, right? Awesome. Yep. Let's go now to search for customer. Yep. There you go, we have customer and we have customer category as well. So let's look for the vendors. Vendors, maybe suppliers. There you go. We have the suppliers. Now let's look for the invoice date. Awesome. So that's tricky because and that's actually one exercise that I want to show you. When it comes to the date, my recommendation is to only have one pipeline, which is the date, right? Okay. And what will change is only the relationship. And by changing the relationship, we will have many different date dimensions in the model. So basically the dimension, if you create, for example, when we're thinking about invoice, we have one, which is the invoice date. We have a posting date. We have a due date. We have expected payment date. So there are many dates, right? And depending the ERP, we can have even more. So basically, depending on this date, we can build relationships. So if we build a relationship between, let's go, for example, to the accounts receivable open items that you have there. So depending, now go into the relationship section. So see that we have, for example, two relationships. So the name is different. We have one where the name is date, and the related pipeline is date, and we're relating the due date against the date. But the name of the dimension will be basically the date. So we know that that's the due date. That's actually the one that we're going to use. But the next one that we have there is the date, payment date, and the relationship is between the payment date. So even though the related pipeline is a date, when you analyze information in the cube, you will find that as a different dimension, which is called date, payment, date. So this is important because when you are in a real implementation, you don't want to have thousands of dates, right? So my idea is to try to standardize. For example, when it comes to account payables and account receivable, both are using the date, payment, date for the payment date relationship. So the naming is exactly the same. So we just have one extra pipeline. So you can do the same for many other scenarios. So that's what we have right now. Okay. So I will mark also the invoice due date as completed, that table and pipeline. And let's now try to find one which is the currency. So let's return to the cash flow. And let's try currency. So that's right. We already have that. So far, and this is what I love basically about the solution. So far, from the pre-built solution, at least we have all the tables that we need, right?
Yep.
We have all the tables that we need. When it comes to, let's now analyze the amounts that we have, right? Let's go to the measures. So let's create a new report for that. So just click into new, create new analysis report. That's right. And let's connect to the training. That's right. All right. So now what we are going to actually do is basically let's build first the two reports that we have, and then we will jump into the one that it's in the bottom, right? So just to see that we have all the elements. So can you now expand? Let's first always, my recommendation is always start first with the measures, right? Because that will filter all the dimensions that we have on the dimension tree. So if you expand now the accounts receivable, let's start first with account receivable. And we have one amount and one AR balance. So this is important because you will also need to know a little bit about the pre-built solution. And the reality is that right now, knowing what amount is will be basically going and into the model, start from the unified layer and go backwards to understand what the amount is, right? The good thing about this is that basically this, since the naming convention is the same across all our solutions, you will see that basically the amount means the same for all of our solutions, which is something great, and you will need to learn just once. But I know that my amount, it's basically the open amount that I have. So let's just drag and drop that into the filter section. And there we have the amount. Interesting. Can you drag and drop the AR balance? That one. And let's place it on the, oh, the reason why is that you place it on the filter section. Place that amount in the column section. It's one below.
All right, okay. That's just,
That's right.
I thought you said filters.
Oh, sorry. No, it was the amount. All right, there we have the amount. And it's the total amount, and now we need to start breaking that information. So let's now drag and drop the columns into the columns, sorry, in the row section. Let's add the company and then the customer. Now, one good practice that I would say, and probably this is just me, is that don't drag the dimension like you did.
Okay.
Just expand that and expand the level. Use the levels. That's my recommendation. Below, the one that has, so the one that looks like a table, that's the attribute. Then we have the first level, the all level, which is the one that rectangle, and then the company is the one that is the level 1 of that specific attribute. So I always prefer to add that. The reason why is that before, and I haven't seen this, but before there were a couple of errors. I mean, I'm talking about maybe 3-4 years ago, where some calculations didn't work if we were using actually the whole hierarchy, because the intention was to use only the levels. I think right now it works, but still I prefer to have to standardize and always use the levels, because I think it's just easier. Otherwise, it might take the level that it wants, and yeah.
Yeah.
So now we have the.
I don't think these work either. If you don't take the lower level, if you take the higher level, then like the row subtotal doesn't work.
All right, got it. All right. So for example, this is really interesting. The company. Then let's ask the customers. The customer names. All right. Okay. The customers, and then this is interesting because, you know, if you scroll to the bottom, it seems like, okay, can you scroll to the bottom on the right hand side? The right hand scroll.
Sorry.
Yeah. All right, so basically we have here one issue with the data, and the issue is that everything falls into unknown. So that means that basically the quality of the data that we have, it's not something that I like. Can you go into the accounts receivable dashboard?
I can.
That's right, that's the one. So yes, there we can see that basically the company, all right, all the customers are unknowns. All right, can you, in the company selection, can you go to the slices? And let's remove the unknown. All but not unknown. All right. Okay, so we have issues with the data. It's just not working as expected. So basically, since it's a demo data, all the companies and all the customers are basically unknown, which is something that we don't want. So we might need to work with some data quality things here. All right, so well, we know what will be our first task and challenge to do. Can we do the same for the accounts? Let's just actually, let's go to the new analysis report. And now let's go into the due date, which is the date. The one that we want to use is the invoice due date. But remember that we already looked at the model at accounts payable, and we saw that the relationship between the due date is just the normal date, all right? Yep. So let's just use that. And let's place it rather than in the rows, let's place the date in the columns. So let's just play the month. Expand the date fiscal. My recommendation is always try to use the fiscal. Okay. and let's expand the month level. Yeah, sorry, just drag and drop the month level into the column section. After that. And let's now go into the summary section, which is on the data tab, and it's actually in your screen is the latest section, the summary section. That's right. And let's filter all the rows. That's the one. One above. Sorry, yeah. Also filter that one. Filter empty and 0 rows, and let's filter the columns as well. So we just want to show the data that we have actually in the model. So this is basically the data that we have so far, which is really bad. Basically, everything is in low.
Yeah.
Okay. So can we save this report? And this will be basically the open sales invoices. Now I understand why you didn't see in the course anything related to accounts payable and receivables, because basically the data is not nice.
Will I save it under finance folder? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay. So basically, that's the first part of the report. Obviously, it doesn't look nice. We will need to work a lot into having something better. Now, let's do the same for the vendors, and let's see if we are having the same issues. It will be hopefully only in accounts receivable, right? So basically, the company, it's the same, right? The date is the same, so we can reuse those two elements, but the amount is different. So the amount that we need to use is basically the amount from the accounts payable, right? Not receivable. So let's just replace it. And now throw it to the bin. For example, in that case, if you are not sure which measures you are taking, you can hover on the amount that you have. Can you hover?
Yep,
and then there it will tell you that actually it comes this from accounts payable.
That's
So this is looking way better, it seems. But now we need to remove the customers, right? Because we're talking about accounts payable. And when you see that number that it is being repeated, for example, you look at February, it's 990.23. It means that it doesn't exist a relationship. So let's just remove the customer. And actually, yeah, now we look at this is making a bit more of sense, right? And the two best companies that we have is the NA10 and the NA20. So as I was expecting, the NA10, which we define as our primary company, is the one that has better data. All right, now let's expand and place them in the accounts payable section. Let's just collapse that section. Let's just now jump into the vendors, which is what we want to add in the and let's expand the vendors. That's right, and place it next to the company. So awesome! I think this is working as expected, right? We have different vendors. We have the company, so this is working and it's working out of the box. So I think we have many of the elements that we will need to work. Now, the information right now is to December 2020. So one of the tasks that we might need to do at the end is basically we will need to push the dates forward so we have information in the 2021, right?
Yep, sounds good.
Oh, okay. So basically, it seems can we save this report as that's right. And rather than being the open sales, it would be the open supplier invoices.
Okay.
So now, question for you and Jordan. What would you do right now, for example, in this scenario? We see that our sales invoices lines, the relationship is not working. So how would you start like trying to find what the issue is, or what do you think it is the issue?
We would need to go back into the relationships part, would we? And see.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So let's go into the issue that we have is with the account receivable, right?
Yeah.
So let's look and see the relationship. So let's open that file again, and I would say, well, don't open it. We already know that it's company and customer, right? And date. So let's go to that one, and let's first, I would say that company is the easiest one. So let's try to find why the relationship is not working. So let's go to the account receivable open items. Which is the one that we have is AR open items. That's right. Yeah. Okay, and let's see how the relationship is built. It's company and company, right? Okay, so let's expand the preview and let's see what we have in the company. So it seems like the relationship is correct, right?
Yeah, it looks okay.
So now let's see what we have in the company. So those are the codes that we have there. So it is NA10. Okay, can you click on the SQL section, which is in the that's right, in the right corner, and can you select distinct company from out? And now select just the company. So open, you cannot drag and drop, just press space and open the square brackets and start typing company, and it will give you the option, like the autofill option.
Okay, so here, yeah.
There you go. It's the fifth option. Just click on it.
Yeah, company.
Company from out, and let's click on execute, which is
down here.
That's
yeah.
right. Okay. Let's see how the information looks like. So we have that thing. Now, on the relationship that you have one blue hyperlink, which will bring you to the company pipeline. Can you click on it? The company. That's right. That's the one.
Yeah. Okay.
And let's do the same here. Wow. Let's go into the previous section. So the relationship is with the company, right? So let's go and let's do the same SQL. It's interesting. I'm wondering why the relationship is not working.
Execute that, yeah.
That's right. It looks the same, right?
Yeah.
FR10, FR10, A10, and A20. Can you return to the other one just to compare them and to be sure that it is not something different? It's in the middle. It's one of the tabs that you have in the middle. One to the right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Cheers.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. I'm not entirely sure why. Let's go into the column.
Or
could be. Let's make a test. Can you go into the column section again, once again?
Yeah.
And in the new step that we have there. Okay, I think what might be the issue. Can you go to we are in the initial step right now. Let's go to the unified layer step.
Okay.
That's the one that actually counts. So it might be that it's not mapped to the unified layer. So can you do the same query here? Look, the company. It's working company, it's customer. All right, strange. Let's go into the new step. And what I want to see, can you create a lookup? And let's see if we can actually see the table there and maybe bring one table. So basically this is like a join, right? So expand the company. So basically we want to bring one field from the company table, and let's bring the company name, which is below. All of those sections that you see there are the relationships that the company has. So let's bring the company name just to see if that brings me something, and scroll to the bottom and then click on add. And let's see if actually this brings me something. Company name. Interesting. It's
disappeared.
Yeah, it's weird because it's actually working.
Oh, it is.
As resources. All right. Basically, it looks like it is working. Okay. All right. It seems like at least with the company it should be working. Okay, maybe we are using the wrong measure. Can you? Okay, now I see what the issue is. Okay, it's not with company. It's with, I think the amount is the issue. Amount. Can you click to the amount? Can you create a query here where we select the sum of amount? Let's make a more advanced query here. So go to the SQL section. And what I want to see if select, let's make the sum of amount. Open brackets. And then square brackets. And let's type amount. And close brackets. And then company.
Straight after here. Yeah.
Just a comma and company. Yeah, there you go. That's right. And then just add the group by company at the end. So it's just SQL from out. Yeah, the group by should be after the from out.
Sorry, my SQL isn't.
No, don't worry, I was in the same journey when I joined ZAP. Group by, it should have a space.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Group by, and then just basically type company. So basically what we're doing, we want the sum of the amount, and then group by company, that's right. And I think amount should be with capital A, because I believe it's by default it's taking the case sensitivity thing activated. And let's click now on execute. So what I want to know is basically if, yeah, we have amount for that thing. So see, now all the amounts are basically, hey, there we go. Okay, I think now I know what is the issue. All right, yes, I'm sure what is the issue. The issue is that basically this step is broken. And you see, and I think this is the reason why it is important to see all the journey of this step. This is not a real solution, so this obviously we won't find this on a pre-build. This is just a training module which they recreate for training purposes, and some of the steps that they missed. This is an error in this model. It's basically if you see the company, look, there is an in step. So that in step that you
Mhm.
see there comes from the initial step, the initial warehouse SQL. So that's the initial step. That's the in step. And then we are creating a union, right?
Yep.
And the union, it's missing. And then we have the company. So basically, that's right. We are missing that union. So let's select company. Mhm. Because the amount, if you see, the amount comes in the middle step. It comes from the union step.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why that's not working.
Okay.
So we should do that for company, we should do that for customer, and we should do that for, let's find customer. It might be that we have that same issue. That's right.
Can you see it?
No, I can't. I think it should be something like business partner or BP. Let's go into the accounts payable. But that's the BP type. Let's go into the accounts payable and let's see how we build a relationship with vendors. It should be something similar. So let's go to the last step. The last step. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Let's search for vendor or supplier. I think it should be vendors. So go to the bottom. There you go. There we have the vendor. No, it's in the bottom of the unified layers things. So it's pay by. That's the name, pay by. All right. Okay. So something similar. We should have something similar. Let's go now to the account receivable open items. And let's search for something similar to pay by. Pay by, I think. There we go. And can you change the query and replace company by customer? And let's see if it works.
Oh, I forgot to change this one.
Execute. Awesome. It's working, right?
Yep.
Now, let's do the same with the date, right? That's the one that was missing. And I think it should be the due date. Let's find the, we have the accounting date. Due date. There we go. That's right.
What's due date?
That's right. Yes. Okay. So I think it seems like, yeah, it's working fine. Okay, so let's then save this. And let's go and process the model. Okay, so when are you available again to start to continue building the report?
Basically, whenever you're free, David.
Sorry?
Whenever you're free.
So tomorrow, are you available or I think you're...
Jordan will be here, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in.
Jordan and Paul.
Tomorrow is a better day for you and you want to call it for today, I can basically do anything from 10 a.m. We could do 9 again if that's preferred.
Yes, I think, let me see how the agenda looks like. So tomorrow, basically, I'm available something around, actually, tomorrow I'm free after 2 p.m.
Sure.
So
That's fine by me.
yeah, you're in the UK time, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, after 2 p.m. we can have a 2-hour session, and maybe in Monday as well we can have something like 2 hours to try to get a. And I think after Monday we can do actually see where we are at and try to basically continue. What you can do, and I would like if you have time today, just to, I think we have almost all the elements that we need to start constructing the report. So maybe if you can try, I mean, I know that there are many logic that will need to take into place, but if you can try to build a report with the elements that we have here, it would be awesome.
Yeah.
To focus much more in just those questions that you have and those places that you could stop. I'm sure there will be some, because there are some extra steps that I think that were not covered in the basic training that we will be thinking here. But yeah, I think it would be a good exercise.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. We'll do.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. All right. So well, just process the model. I didn't actually pay attention if it was a full, but well, let's try. See how the information looks like, and hopefully the report that we created will now start looking nice. Still, there is a journey to take. There are many calculations that we'll need to break. We will need to break also the Excel file and load it into the data, but I think it's good. We're having a good progress, right?
Yep, for sure.
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right. Well, then I will send you the invitation tomorrow for a 2-hour session after 2 p.m. And then let's meet on Monday as well.
Amazing. Perfect. Thank you for your
That's
time.
great, guys.
Simon.
Thanks,
Really
David.
appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Well done, guys. Yeah,
Bye.
looks
Cheers.
good, man.
Yeah. Hi,
That's
Alexi.
How you doing?
I'm pretty good.
I was
Hey,
just
thanks.
staying quiet here in the background.
Yeah. I never even noticed that you were on the call.
Yeah. He says name in a mirror 3 times. He appears behind you as well.
That's right.
No, you guys are talking too much, so I couldn't get a word in. So I thought, I'll just stay on mute.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, cool, guys.
All right.
Thanks so much. David, I'll give you a call
Catch you
shortly.
later.
Thanks
Bye.
for your time. Cheers. See ya.
Bye.